We are The Meltdown, presented by MyBookie, and we're here with a new retro trailer reaction. This series looks to reintroduce and put the spotlight on some notable movies from previous years. All of the choices featured within this series have been hand-selected by our Meltdown crew. Some of these selections include some of us completing first-time watches, and some include those timeless classics that we may have all seen numerous times. Join us throughout Season 1 for a look at the retro trailers and the discussions that follow. Today's entry is not a tumor.
Oh.
It's not a tumor. It's Kindergarten Cop from 1990, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and directed by beloved filmmaker Ivan Reitman. Arnold Schwarzenegger's done a lot of high-profile movies. However, Schwarzenegger did an episode of The Late Show with host James Corden in May of 2015, in which he revealed which of his films he appreciates more than the others, and the answer surprised many, in Kindergarten Cop. As Schwarzenegger told Corden, quote, "I think Kindergarten Cop is my favorite. I think one of the comedies would be my favorite because for so many years I tried to get into comedy and I couldn't. The studios made all this money from the action movies. They said, why would we go and change the mold? We're making a lot of money with you. We keep giving you action scripts." So with that, let me introduce our panel here to talk about Kindergarten Cop today. I am Meltdown host Tim Melton. That is my co-host, Mr. John Lunsford.
Kindergarten Cop actually holds up. It's kind of interesting. I was expecting to hate this movie.
Okay, there we go. We have producer Tyler Johns here with us.
What's up, you guys?
We have Rockstar, who's a beloved contributor here on The Meltdown that you see daily on The Next Round.
I don't like eating fish.
Okay, that's a very
Boys have, sorry.
It's a very odd remark, but it is right there. In the film
Throw it out there.
that was selected here in Kindergarten Cop was my personal selection, and the reason I picked it is because it encompasses so many different genres. It is a pretty violent action thriller. It's a charming comedy. It's a suspenseful drama. It's a buddy cop police procedural movie. It's a romance. It's a mall movie. It's a schoolhouse movie. It's a drug movie. It's an animal movie. And oh, by the way, it could kind of technically be called a kid's movie. How well did the film handle all of these different genres? We will discuss. But first, without any further hesitation, John, let's now go ahead and see the retro trailer for Kindergarten Cop from 1990.
He's a cop in a class by himself. He is fearless, unstoppable, unbeatable.
I forgot to introduce myself. My name is John Kimball, and I love my car.
Yo, man, I'm just gonna keep an eye on it for you, all right? See what I'm saying?
Now, he's going undercover to face his toughest adversary.
Listen, Kimball, you gotta handle this like any other police situation.
They speak their own language.
You walk into it showing fear, you're dead.
They play by their own rules.
No fear.
No fear.
And they are totally ruthless.
No fear. No fear.
Up in the morning and out to school. The teacher is teaching the golden rule.
Kindergarten Cop.
American history and practical man.
He's a cop in a class by himself.
Shut up!
What's the matter?
I have a headache.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor at all.
The new comedy from Ivan Reitman. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Kindergarten Cop.
They're horrible.
I think the movie is way better than the trailer, John.
I would agree.
What's your reaction to just the trailer there?
You know, so we did The Game from 1997 in our first one of these, and I made a comment like, I like not having the old movie voiceover guy being in that. They kind of shoot the way trailers are done now. You don't have that nowadays unless you're specifically trying to be stupid and over the top in your trailer. And this has that. And from the first minute, the thing is, obviously knowing what the movie is, the serious part drags on way too long in this trailer of like, hey, this is badass Arnold Schwarzenegger as you know him, from Terminator and everything else he's done. It's been like, hardcore action. It drags on for a little too long. It actually lasts about as long as it does in the movie. They pretty much showed the entire first little bit of the trailer from the movie. But, not a good trailer overall. But, my takeaway from this movie in general is I watched it. I've seen it a million times, but it's probably been 10 years since I've watched it. And I was expecting once the kid stuff starts happening, it's going to start turning into that cheesy, what you see with like every action star when they do that, like The Rock when he's in, the Tooth Fairy, or when Vin Diesel's in a movie like that or something. But I hated all the serious stuff at the beginning. And then once the kid stuff started, it's like, okay, this is the movie I remember. This is actually pretty good. All the super serious stuff, knowing what it's about to get into, is like, can we please just get through this part? Nobody cares about the cop part. Everybody wants to see the kindergarten part.
In this action comedy, unusual circumstances find big, brawny cop John Kimball posing as a kindergarten teacher in order to apprehend a major drug lord, as well as his ruthless accomplice and mother, Eleanor. While pretending to be a kid-friendly instructor, Kimball falls for a pretty fellow teacher as he battles both unruly children and dangerous bad guys. Tyler, this was your first ever full viewing of this movie. What are some of the elements that you liked and disliked about Kindergarten Cop?
So I had seen this movie before, but only the made-for-TV version that's edited for time. So the serious parts that John was talking about, I didn't see any of that ever until last night. I love this movie, but I was not expecting it to be that serious. For the first half hour, I had wondered if I hit the wrong button on Netflix.
He's got a beard.
Yeah, why does he have a beard?
I think that's part of the brilliance of the movie, right? Is you have to get that feeling that this is a Schwarzenegger movie for you to buy into. He can't use his greatest asset, which is his strength and his weaponry, to tackle what is the challenge of the movie in getting this group of kindergarten-aged children to actually follow his commands. Rockstar, I know you appreciate this movie very much.
Oh, I love this, but the funny thing is it came on TBS, probably like 3 or 4 months ago, and it was probably 20 minutes in. And I remember put it on for a second, just looking at for nostalgia, and then I ended up watching an hour of it. Reading up on it, what's great is originally they didn't want Arnold Schwarzenegger because he's an action star. Who they originally approached and he turned it down was
Bill
Murray, and they wanted Harold Ramis to be the partner. And they said it's not. And Harold Ramis didn't want to do it if he didn't get to direct it. So that's when they had what's her name play Pamela. He said, well, let's make it a female partner. And Richard Tyson's in it from Mobile, Alabama. He's the bad guy.
He is. Cullen Crisp.
That's right. And I love this movie as a kid. But when you said his first comedy, in '88 he came out with Twins, and I would say that's more of a comedy than an action film. I think he was trying to bank off Twins. Like, look, we made Twins in '88. It's kind of a funny movie. I can do a funny movie as a kid's movie, stuff like that. I enjoyed that. I had more facts. What it was going against in 1990, which really PO'd Schwarzenegger, he tried to pull it up. We need to release it in 91 because they were going against Home Alone.
Ooh.
And they got destroyed. It still get good, but they said they pushed so hard. Can we do a summer release in 91? They was like, no, we're going to go against Home Alone, and they got bashed. But still, it's one of the most quotable movies from him. It came up with the soundboards on the internet. Do you remember that? Where I'm Detective John Kimball, they would call people, and who is your daddy and what does he do? I mean, just that became a huge soundboard. You can go to E-Bombs World and make your own prank phone calls. So Kindergarten Cop is it's one of my favorite Schwarzenegger films. Loved it.
Tyler, are you aware that this shares some video game history with Silent Hill, as the school in Silent Hill is modeled to look like the school from Kindergarten Cop, with a lot of the same posters that are featured in the hallways of this movie are featured in the hallways of Silent Hill.
Is it really?
Yeah. Astoria, Oregon, I believe, is where not only this is set, but also was the inspiration behind the Silent Hill.
Also where the Goonies is set.
Yeah, because
that is correct.
Also, one of my favorite scenes, there's all these little scenes where he sees all these open lunch boxes and this kid's just eat, are these all your lunches? No. Stop it! He just throws it down.
Exactly.
Eating everybody's lunch.
I don't think this is a movie that could be made in 2024. No. I don't. It wouldn't work.
No,
it worked well for 1990 and releasing.
I mentioned the Tooth Fairy and the Pacifier and all that. I mean, those movies are looked at as like, what were they doing with those movies? Because they're action stars, and you kind of turn your nose up at it. Well, guess what? Name literally any action star right now. If they do the same thing, you just hear the title, you hear what it's going to be. That's going to be stupid. I don't want to see that. If Kindergarten Cop were done, even if Arnold were to come back and do a Kindergarten Cop 2 instead of Dolph Lundgren, it would be, have its nose. You'd have your nose turned up and say it was stupid. There's just movies that worked in the '90s, the late '80s to pretty much all the '90s. Comedies that worked. I randomly watched like Happy Gilmore last night. Like that worked back then. That can't work now. There's just a lot of
they're
comedies.
coming out with a sequel.
I know, but it just doesn't work nowadays. There's certain actors, and I think Arnold's one of those because Arnold can't put butts in the seats necessarily because he did the new Terminator and nobody cared about the new Terminator. Like it's just certain people that are so huge back then that you just can't quite make it work nowadays.
Let me tell you the things I loved about this movie. I love the soundtrack and the overall theme that plays throughout. It just feels like wholesome early 90s. It does. And this film came out in 1990, but it has that feeling of being a 90s film, distinctly 90s film. I love the balance of all the different genres. As I mentioned, it's genuinely funny, genuinely terrifying and dramatic. The character of Cullen Crisp, played by Richard Tyson, as you said, and also Richard Tyson playing the bad guy in this movie. Huge Alabama fan as well.
Yeah.
So maybe, who knows, you're rooting for him over Mr. Kimball.
He was the bully in 3 O'Clock High, which is a highly recommended film.
First ever movie.
He hams it up in this role a little bit, but I love every moment of it. I really love the performance that Richard Tyson gives here, and
same thing. It's like
I'm all for it.
Good 90s bad guy. That if that exact same performance were put in literally any movie now, would be like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But back then, it's like, oh, that's kind of more nostalgic watching that kind of performance.
Him and Billy Zane sort of competing for that sort of hamming it up 90s bad guy who's supposed to be sort of like an attractive guy who does dastardly things. And, he plays the role perfectly there. Richard Tyson does. It feels very much like a product of its time, but it holds up really, really well, Rockstar.
It does. And that one scene where who's your daddy and what does he do? I'm curious to see how much of that was ad-libbed by the kids, where there's like explaining like my dad can't wear hats because his head's too big for hats, and the twins talking about the sex machine. But some kids like, my dad doesn't do anything but sit on the couch. And it's like that. I don't know where my dad lives. He lives in France. I don't ever talk to him. And that whole scene where it's just, and the dad that's a gynecologist, that's one of the biggest lines from the movie. Yeah. That's said 2 or 3 times. That kid was awesome. He played Abe Lincoln in the play. He was
in Pet Sematary as well.
Yes, Cage Creed. But yeah, like that scene is memorable to me. Like a bunch of those scenes. When you close your eyes and you think of John Kimball, what is he wearing?
He's wearing a jacket.
Yep.
And blue jeans. Yep. And a collared shirt.
Yeah, it seems like he only
and a whistle.
Yeah, he only wears that 2 or 3 times in the movie. Like you think of that one scene where it's like a corduroy jacket.
Right.
I think cowboy boots too. But yeah,
the fact that they made him look so different as his detective self that's running through the mall, and then how he comes out once he's clean shaven and is ready to go to kindergarten, it really works really well.
He falls under the bed after the first day.
Can we talk about the performance from the principal in this movie?
She's one of my favorites.
Linda Hunt is awesome, and when she does that punch, every time it makes me laugh.
Yeah, it's great. She's so smooth.
It's an ensemble piece. It's a Schwarzenegger-led film, but it's an ensemble piece where they get every casting decision right, even with the kids. They auditioned over 2,000 of them.
And the one thing that stood out the most to me, and I couldn't stop thinking about the entire rest of the movie, is when they're on the plane to Oregon, the stewardess is Angela Bassett. And I was like Angela Bassett. And I looked it up. And of course, there's no reason back when I very first saw this to even know who Angela Bassett was when I was a kid and first saw this.
Tina Turner.
And now it's like, that's Angela Bassett. Was nominated for an Oscar last year. Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
If we were doing a bracket of best ferret movies ever made, this one would be a number 1 seed. This is a number 1 seed ferret movie.
Oh, I had it in my notes. I just had ferrets are cool in my notes.
Along Came Polly had a ferret.
What do you think this movie did for ferret sales? I'm being completely genuine in this question. I bet they skyrocketed.
It shot them up 100%.
And it's so random that an ad to that movie is that's how he connects with the kids. That, okay, he's got a ferret. What? We got some way you got to connect with the kids, and let's just introduce a pet.
What really is smart about this movie is all the ways that he uses to try to connect with the kids seem in character. They seem like something that character would actually come up with and say, this is all I've got. I've got to fire the ammunition I have, not the ammunition that I'm carrying on me. So the ferret is a big part of that. Eleanor Crisp, the mother character played by Carol Baker, is really menacing.
Yeah.
Not so tough without your car, are you? It's... That line is delivered perfectly towards the end when, I don't know, was she arrested or is she supposed to be looked at as dead? She got beaten pretty severely, but I think she was probably behind bars. But that whole fire sequence in the school is genuinely riveting. It's terrifying. It's shot really well. The scene within the showers and the bathroom and where Cullen Crisp meets his demise, all of that is really haunting imagery. I think it's so well done with the sprinklers going off and Kimball getting shot and being stretchered out and the kids like worried he's going to die.
Like I was 3 when it came out in theater, so I didn't necessarily rush out to the theater and see it. But I remember after the fact, just knowing what it was and being like, "Hey, Mom, I want to watch this movie," and I probably saw it at Blockbuster or something like that. And my mom was like, "The end of that movie is very violent. Like, it's not just playful what you see in the the trailer, which apparently has a lot more of the serious stuff in it than I thought, but." You just know the good lines that Arnold delivers, that it's a bunch of kids running around. So as a kid, it's like, oh, I want to watch Kindergarten Cop. It's a perfect movie for me, right? And I was like, no, do you know how violent it gets at the end? And eventually I watched it, and it's like, as an adult, it's like, okay, it's not like, oh my God, it's so bloody, but it still has its moments where it's like, oh, it's kind of rough.
It's a drug movie.
Especially for what it has been the entire time.
Unless you're watching the made-for-TV version. I did not know that Colin Crisp was a drug dealer until last night.
He was. And
Just
he
a
was
bad dude.
willing to kill some people to get there. I love the scene where he's trying to buy the toy race cars, and ends up assaulting that guy and taking the gift and all that stuff. But he was very brazen. I think that's what you take away from the Colin Crisp character there. Here's things I didn't really love. I don't buy for 1 minute that Kimball turns over his badge to become a full-time kindergarten teacher at the end of the movie. I just have never bought that one bit. There's no way that guy ends up having his heart melted that much to go do that. And by the way, what a crappy deal for the kindergarten teacher who got removed from that classroom, forgotten about completely, and then told, hey, we're about to bring you back. Oh, wait, never mind. Kimball's decided to take your job altogether.
This dude's never taught before, did good for a couple of weeks, so we're going to keep him. It would have made more sense almost if it was like, hey, go be a police officer there. So that way you can still be around like all the kids as they grow up and become the school resource officer or something like that would have been better.
Yeah.
The principal said that the teacher before Kimball had 25 years experience. So she was tenured and just got sent packing.
Yeah, we just moved right past that part.
It's awful. Rockstar, you're a savant on 90s movies. The main character in this is John Kimball, but in The Fugitive, you've got Richard Kimball. And I hate how I mix those names up all the time.
Oh, I've never thought of that, but you got 1990, 1993, 2 different roles. I did not. Damn, that's a good pull.
A couple of big Kimballs there.
Yeah, and You Feed a Dog, Kibble.
Which, by the way, the little girl in this with the corduroy sort of overall things, she was in the movie Beethoven, which they feed a lot of kibble to. So I saved your analogy there. It works out perfect.
With John Grodin?
Charles
Grodin.
Charles
Grodin, yeah.
One thing I also hate about this movie is the fact that a sequel exists. It's not connected, really. I don't think in any way. I haven't seen the sequel starring Dolph Lundgren, but it looks horrendous, and the fact that a sequel exists makes me angry every time I think of Kindergarten Cop.
Well, no, I read the synopsis. It's really original, though. Like, it's a guy that goes undercover. Well, wait. A guy goes undercover and to a kindergarten class, and he finds out that a girl 2 or 3 doors down in another kindergarten class, he kind of develops a relationship with her. And Bill Bellamy plays like a partner. Like, it's kind of funny. Like, the description looks good.
Yeah, it's got to be one of the most downvoted trailers of all time, if I had to guess. Bill Murray and Patrick Swayze were approached to play the role of Kimball. Danny DeVito was also reportedly considered for the role, but Ivan Reitman nixed the idea due to the actor's height. As Rockstar mentioned, Twins looked at sort of as the first comedy for Arnold Schwarzenegger, also directed by Ivan Reitman. They went on to make 3 films together, including Twins, Kindergarten Cop,
Junior?
And Junior.
Didn't see Junior.
Junior, man, that was the final end
with
of
DeVito.
that.
DeVito was in that too.
DeVito was in that one too.
No, thank you.
Exterior scenes at Astoria Elementary School were filmed at John Jacob Astor Elementary School located on Franklin Avenue in Astoria, Oregon, 2 very different states and very different parts of the country. Other locations were used in or near Astoria, with the interior classroom scenes filmed at Universal Studios. For Kindergarten Cop, Schwarzenegger's second comedy film with director Ivan Reitman, it was released December 21st, 1990, and earned $202 million worldwide against a $26 million budget. This thing was a financial juggernaut, I think, based on its production budget with what it brought in, resulting in Schwarzenegger making $12 million alone. One of his big requests on the set was to have a gym. That was one of the things he negotiated, was he had to have a gym nearby.
Him and I are so similar.
He was getting ready to go make Terminator 2, so he needed to be able to work out, I guess, every single day. So that's what you need to know about Kindergarten Cop. Is this a movie you appreciate all these years later? Let us know in the comment section below, and make sure you visit our title sponsor, John. That is MyBookie.
Go to mybookie.ag. Use promo code NEXTROUND, NEXTROUND. I can spell just like a kindergartner. Go to mybookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere at mybookie.ag.
High grades all around for Kindergarten Cop. We all really enjoyed this film. We'll have more retro trailer reactions to share with you right here on the channel, The Meltdown. Make sure you like this video and subscribe for more content on Meltdown 24/7.